Alright, hello there. This is a new section I'm gonna try, at least for a few videos, but potentially forever. We'll see how much work it is. Where I'll go over things I might have been able to do better in the game. And I thought I'd start with a thing that I should do more of. Because this game, as if you watched it, you'll know, it was very much decided on attrition. I was completely outbashed and had very few players in the end. But one way you can theoretically still win when that happens is if you build up a lead early. Now, traditionally, I've not been able to do that, but I think this is the kind of aggressive play that might lead to that kind of result. And it starts with a deep kick and hoping for a failed pickup, so it's not going to happen every game, obviously. And then it's basically an invasion on his half with fast players. We open up an opening with the splits, and that allows us to run through with our 3 fast players. And I especially like this formation of 3 players, because even when he blitzes one of them, he's not really able to contain them. So here he has blitzed one of them, and you see this warrior is using all of his movement except GFIs, and he's still not really able to contain these 2. He could contain them probably if he used GFIs and stuff, but he doesn't want to take that risk before going for the pickup. And of course he rolls like double failure on the actual pickup here, which is disastrous with my players being here. So, obviously this is very lucky for me, but I still think this is something I should do a lot more, because it gives hope in games where you get hopelessly outbashed. Now, this wasn't enough by itself, but if I could do this one more time, that would pretty much be the game, even though I get terribly outbashed later. So, that's the first thing. Kaboom. Now, I did actually get a chance to do almost the exact same thing very soon after this in the very next drive, because I got another really deep kick here, and this time the kick was brutal enough that I didn't even attempt to pick up right away, just content to stand next to him. And I actually did want to do this. I wanted to run through with the fast players again and set up like here, but I messed up the part where I open a hole to go through. So let's see what I do. I move in a catcher here to assist, and then I contemplate who to blitz with, and then I blitz, and when we actually get to the blitz, it's not a down, so it's just a push. And here I have 2 push choices, and one of the push choices gives him a hit on my catcher who has no skills, and one of the push choices completely shuts down any ability to run through. So obviously this was a failure, but it was a failure in my choice of what to do, I think, or I know, because I've analyzed this. So what I'm doing wrong actually here is the assist positioning, because what I should have done is I should have assisted from here, because that way I would have to mark one of these to cancel assist. I could just stand one of these guys up and then blitz from here, and then I would be able to push the Beastman here, and he's still forming a weak screen with this guy, but with this way it would just be a simple 2+ dodge per person I want to run through, which is very much possible. So if I had assisted from here, I could have gone through, and maybe I would have gone too early, and maybe I would have actually won this game. Who knows? Since we did not do that though, the game pretty soon looked like this. So the ball was pretty secure with all his team around it, and I had some time to react and could form a screen in front of him, which basically initiates the screening game. And what is the screening game? So usually as elves you'll build a really big screen and try to prevent any movement forward, but that's not really possible. But you try to make their progress so slow that they can't score in the drive. It usually doesn't really work, but it tends to force some dice, and if it half works, it might sometimes force the opponent to change their tactics and play more risky, which might create opportunities for stealing the ball. But the baseline of the screening game is that you block off movement forward with your players. And here we have the archetypical elf screen. It's better with more players. We already lost some players at this point, so we can't quite cover the whole pitch. But the idea is that we have 2 lines of screen, and so we have a front line and a back line. And in each line the players are spaced in a way so if you want to get past in between them, you have to do hard dodges. And hard dodges are dodges into tackle zones. The reason there's 2 levels of the screen is that he can of course blitz the front line, and a blitz can result in a removal of a player. And if we remove this player, then these players are no longer forming a screen, so the first line is not blocking at all. So that's why you need a second line to actually make sure that even with a blitz they can't get past you. So even though a blitz cannot completely break an elf screen, and a blitz will still severely weaken it, because you'll be able to mark more players, force more dodges, and force it to move back probably. So if you can make your opponent not blitz the screen, that's a very good thing. And probably the best way to do that is to blitz the corner of his cage, because then he has a tough choice to make. He either has to dodge with his ball, or he has to use his blitz not on the screen. So what do you do when you're at a bash team against a screening elf player? Well, what you do is exactly what Matto did. This is what you do. You base up a whole bunch, and here he was even able to mark the back line, which is usually not, you shouldn't usually not be able to do that, but you know, I'm a bit low on players, and he was able to run around here, which is very good. And of course his basing up here, it forces me to either dodge or punch him, and with these being Chaos Warriors, it's kind of hard for me to punch him, so I'm probably gonna have to dodge. And you know, dodges can fail, and that's the weakness of the screening game. Not only that, even if no dodges fail at all, just basing up will, like I mentioned, force the screen to move backwards a bit. Basically, when you're playing the elf screen game, well, your best case scenario is that the opponent is not even able to get into scoring range. That's your goal. And every time you get pushed back even 1 square, the chance of that happening is reduced. So that's also a reason to base up. So even if no dice fail for the elves, you want to base up just to push it back, so you get closer and closer to scoring range. And that is also why getting this player this far forward is such a big deal, because rather than just pushing the screen 1 space back, it pushes it 2 spaces back. And as you can see on the turn timer, we're getting close to the time where he really needs scoring threats. So every square matters here. Now, on watching this, I realized that I could have actually blocked this move around off. And the way I'd do that is that I wouldn't stick completely to the very orthodox elf screen. I would have modified it a little bit. I should have rather. I should have moved this player to here. This way, it's still an elf screen because he is still part of the front line, because these two positions here are still forming a proper screen. The default when you build a screen should be the straight lines like this, because they are harder to dodge through. But on the front line, that's not that relevant because they can be blitzed off anyway. So in this case, moving this guy here would still be a screen, but it would control more space. And most importantly, it would actually block this warrior from getting here, because this guy would be in the way. He could of course nullify that by blitzing this guy, but he's not going to do that because he's using his blitz here to free the ball. I think by this additional space control, we also prevent him from moving up the ball over here, which he does, which might also mean that it doesn't get out of reach of my invader over here, which could also create additional opportunities. So this was a missed opportunity by me to be a little too much on autopilot when constructing the screen and using default positions on everyone, when actually moving this guy 2 steps forward would have been so much better. So at this point we are pushed back a little more than we would want and what we could have been, but we're still far up enough for it to be awkward for him, because this is the turn he needs scoring threats, and scoring threats, well, you kind of need to be here with most players to even be in, well, here to be in double GFI range, but he doesn't want to do double GFI. So we're still putting him in a bit of a tricky situation. There's 2 options that I can see. He can try to break through here, but he can break through all the way because there's a single guy here, but he needs a down because it's a sidestepper. So if it's a push, he just pushes here, and then it's still a screen. It's possible to dodge through, but the drawback of going here is that it's far away from the ball and far away from most of his players, so he would only be able to run through with like 2 or 3 players, and it would be really hard to secure the ball there or even get the ball to their next turn. So Matto goes for what I think is the better option, which is blitzing here in the center and basically jamming in as many players as possible inside the screen. And this has 2 benefits. One is he gets as many players as possible as close to the scoreline as possible, so he has many handoff threats and many people who can block people who are in the way and stuff. And the other benefit is that he's literally marking all of my players, even the second line. Every single player is marked, which means if I'm to make a new screen here, I need to dodge every single player. And you know, I have some built-in rerolls, and I have a reroll, but I have a lot of rerolls, but you can only use 1 per turn. And with this many dodges in 1 turn, it's quite likely that some of them will fail. And if something fails, then I don't have a full screen. And if that happens, basically, worst version of that for him is that he's forced to make a handoff because I'm blocking partially, but I can't. There's no way I block all of these players. So what I do is that I don't actually think it's a good idea to make a screen here. So instead, I want to use the fact that he basically has a based cage here, which again, it was a good move by him, I think, but it does have this drawback that I could potentially hit the ball here. And by hitting the ball, have a pretty good chance to force a pickup roll and then a handoff roll or something like that. And and a tiny chance to actually steal the ball, because I do have a scoring threat, or a knorring threat as some call it. But at this point my dodge dice, or well, Nuffle says no basically. I roll 3 ones in 4 rolls, and that's not enough to even get a hit on the ball in this case, which means he gets a fairly easy score. So let's see that. Hitting this guy, and in the end he has to make 1 GFI to score, which is not a lot. And assuming everything went like this, except I made that adjustment earlier, so I'm pushed back 1 less square, that would be 2 GFIs instead of 1 GFI, which is not a huge deal. But then that's also the movement 7 on his beast being really relevant. If he didn't have a movement 7 beast, that would actually put him out of scoring range, or be forced to make a handoff or something. But still, forcing 2 GFIs is still a lot better than 1 GFI, because I mean there's a bit higher chance of that failing. So the disaster of the second half was of course started by the blitz. That enabled him to do this blitz here, and he used that to basically get a complete surround on almost all of my players, which blocked them off from the ball. And so the question is, could I have changed something about my setup to not make this possible even with a blitz? And I think I could have. Yeah, the purpose of this setup is to advance on this side, make a screen, and move up with the ball so I get in scoring range, and it's really hard for him to stop the score. So that takes like a pickup and a pass probably, but otherwise it's really no dice except 1 dodge here. And one really easy change I could do is to just have this guy 1 step to the left, because he can still move forward exactly as much that way, but that way he can't surround on this side, can't really surround on this side without blitzing there, and he's using his blitz here, so that already improves the situation, because that means he can't have this player here, which means this guy could just dodge out right away without it being a hard dodge, which means that this guy could do the blitz. We're using this guy to an assist instead of what I actually ended up doing, which was moving up the catcher down here as an assist, so I could blitz out. And so that even that little modification would already be an improvement, because I wouldn't have a catcher stack up here after this. I could actually free all these players and get them around the ball. But there's one more thing I could do. So let's look a bit on the details of that. So this is the fastest guy. He would move its squares forward. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So here or here. Here, which means the next 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. He could go like here if we wanna. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It would be hard for him to run around, so I would probably screen like this rather. And these guys, of course, need to be on the line because I need to have 3 on the line. But I could move the ball receiver 1 step forward and have him on the back line, in which case he would have to move 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, which is 1 less than he can move, which means he could be basically, well, we could move with this guy to there. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, that's no problem. And let's say we put the ball receiver here, which means this guy could, we would want him like here, I guess, and he could move 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, so he could actually start out here, because it would form a screen with the ball the wannabe ball carrier. Right, so we have the obvious change with this guy going here, but as we examined, we could also move this guy here without actually sacrificing anything in the purpose, and then move up our scoring player up, so he's one of the 3 players on the line, and that would have been a much better setup, because then on the blitz he can't surround us, and he would have to dodge to even penetrate into our drive on the side where the ball is. Of course he could blitz this guy, but it would not be very easy for him to invade that way, because his players are not that fast. So that's a lesson for the future.